Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. I must be honest with you, this digital creation role that I've stepped into is not so easy, especially when what I'm wanting to channel from you is from source and from spirit, and it requires a level of detachment and observation and introspection that when I'm sitting in front of a camera like this on a daily basis isn't always so easy. Of course, we must know that it's not so easy for any one of us to put the technology down when it's become a part of how we learn and communicate and run our lives. So for me to bring these channeled messages across to you and to be reading from the Song of God is a miracle on its own, because as a healer and as someone who believes in one-on-one touch and closer connection and intimacy with others to really get to the root of whatever healing work needs to be done, there is a need for me to really see you. There's a need for me to be in your space with you. So when I'm here, I want you to know that I'm creating that safe space, and that I'm really hoping that with the growth of this community, we can all be authentic and create that space for one another. It can even be just for yourself. And these readings, regardless of whether they are dated, have special messages in there for each one of you. And I believe that if we can adopt some of what I am speaking about, whatever you're resonating with, if you can adopt that into a daily practice, it will help you to settle your heart, feed your mind with positivity and affirmation and insight to help you along your destiny path, or for whatever purpose and potential you are being guided towards by Spirit. And one of the questions that came to mind for me this morning was, who teaches us to grow up? Who teaches us? We are taught in schools and we are educated and we are given some tools to line us up for a career, some security in a routine, what other things? The ability to amass credit and debt, and insurance, and according to the systems, the procedures, the banking, whatever government in any country. But who teaches us to grow up? Our parents are there for us, but they are battling with the stresses and the financial constraints in middle-class families, especially, and especially here in South Africa. We can see the cost of inflation and the rise of petrol prices and food prices are really hurting families with one or more children. So going back to our parents' role in teaching us to grow up, we are somewhat guided when we are children, but I feel like a lot of what we experience in our childhood is an extension of a parent's trauma, if there is trauma in a family. And when we look at statistics and facts and divorce rates and domestic abuse, and whether people are, especially in India, whether they are getting married for love or if it's an arranged marriage. And here in South Africa, the huge gap between the ability for our young adults to connect and have that foundation for a long-term relationship leading into marriage and having children. So there are so many vast social conflicts, and again, who teaches us to grow up? At some point, parents let go, and at the age of 18, many children here in South Africa are pushed out of the household into the workforce when it could just as well take some inspiration from families in the East, and how much more families are there in the same household and living together. So this question again, who tells us to grow up? At what point in our young adulthood or in our 30s and 40s do we look at what we are still carrying from the past and what we are entitled to set down at some point and say, right, I'm taking responsibility now for what is mine, and I'm stepping into womanhood or manhood, knowing the rules and the principles and the guidelines and the spiritual laws that are laid down quite quite openly anywhere if we've been searching. I mean, are we seekers? What are we here for? Are we still asking ourselves the question, who am I and what is the meaning of? Because saying that I'm going to be responsible is being accountable, and there's value in that. And I'm accountable to myself, so I can trust myself. And when I can say that I've taken responsibility for the things in my life that have put me either on or off my course, I really am taking as much control of what I can. In all of this, there's a pace that we need to acknowledge that needs some slowing down. Because if we continue to accumulate, if we continue to allow ourselves to remain attached to certain patterns, habits, objects, cycles, if we allow ourselves to remain attached to those things, how can there be growth? The catalyst for that is a movement that we have to create when we say, right, we are open and ready for God's Source Spirit to use us in a way that we cannot really fathom, we cannot control, we cannot presume or assume what God has in store for us when the potential is of such great magnitude. If we're saying with God anything is possible, then why are we making it impossible? We are the only ones in our way. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. But the communication that is happening inside the mind, where all the ideas begin, is our imagination fueling positivity, or is it in the shadows regurgitating, self-sabotaging, repeating cycles? You can look at an annual calendar. You can decide what month in that year is applicable for you the most, where you feel the best. Mine is usually February. Not just because it's the month of love, but certain dates have fallen in festivals as I've traveled, significant moon cycles, and the ability to travel at certain times of the year have just made it so that February is when I have almost my December celebration, my last month of the year. And I can go and make a list of everything from the previous year and decide what it is that is no longer serving me. What can I renounce, release, and let go? And when I say renounce, it's not about stripping yourself down to a loincloth and walking out with the Bible in your hand. There's no extremist actions necessary here. It's to change an attitude, to be able to observe the self, to grieve past versions of the self, to become a man or a woman in God's eyes that can spread light, receive this knowledge, prophesize, do mission work, do service work. It doesn't always have to mean an extension of the self and a grueling effort. It comes to you from spirit only when you make space, when you surrender. Okay. Sure, that was quite a message. Right. All beings, O Arjuna, go into my nature. At the end of Kalpa, I send them forth again at the beginning of the next Kalpa. Animating my nature, I again and again send forth all of this multitude of beings, helpless by the force of nature. So, talking about Kalpa, what I have is a glossary of terms. We can go and look up Kalpa. Here we go. 2 Kalpas make a day and a night of Brahma. It's a ritual ceremony, one of the 6 auxiliary sciences of the Vedas. A kalpa can last, there's so many zeros, 4, 3, 2, 0, and another 6 zeros years. I'm not going to work that one out. The Big Bang theory of creation states that all matter was condensed into a single super atom billions of years ago. And when it burst, the universe was born. The force was such that the universe is still scattering. Wow. On the other hand, the steady state theory asserts that the universe is beginningless and endless, and that out of the rudimentary hydrogen, new galaxies are constantly being formed to fill the space vacated by others moving away. Krishna reconciles the two. The Big Bang is manifestation of his nature at the beginning of a kalpa, an age. Since it is still in process of manifestation, we are not able to realize that one day all these will be withdrawn into his nature. For example, when the galaxies have dispersed far enough from one another to exhaust the original impulse, they will begin to return to the center. God, his nature, and the potentiality of manifestation and unmanifestation, projection and withdrawal are all eternal. Hence, the continuous creation theory is also true. Kalpa is a super astronomical period of time, but in reality, it is only kalpana, the imagination, a thought in the divine mind. Thought involves both imagining and guessing in response to sensory stimuli. Careful observation shows that at one point, just before we drop off to sleep, it seems as though the senses and the imagining faculties are returning to our nature, and once the imagining and guessing has ceased, they have returned. When we wake, in dream or otherwise, those faculties start streaming out. This happens to us every day, and to God every one of His days, which means that there is nothing but God. I love that. But in reality, it is only Kalpana, the imagination, a thought in the divine mind. So what would that one thought be in the mind to pull you into a state of being that is just that one point of God in the universe, and still so vast and infinitely expansive? Know that that is within you. Know it. Don't believe it. Know it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really love it when the messages in the book, The Song of God, align so well with the introduction and channeled message. I thank God Source Spirit for being here with us today, for reaffirming, for placing the signs and synchronicities in such perfect order. So let this knowledge and light open your mind and your heart. Let you see with new eyes and hear with new ears. Divine in me honors the divine in you. Namaste. Amen. And God bless you.